Turning the page on leadership in Indiana government. The Holcomb era coming to an end. The Braun era set to begin. We look at the potential impact on jobs, education, manufacturing, and more. Plus, feast your eyes on this. Chefs from around the globe in central Indiana competing for bragging rights at the World Food Championships. How it could be a recipe for success for the state's culinary scene.
Taylor brings the energy.
Are you ready for it?
And the Taylor Swift effect in Indianapolis. Why it was music to the ears for fans and businesses. Inside Indiana Business is next.
From Indiana's business news leader, this is IBJ Media's Inside Indiana Business with Gerry Dick, presented by Elevate Ventures, Indiana University, and LIUNA.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gerry Dick. The deal is done. Election 2024 in the books. New leadership at both the national and state levels. Donald Trump elected president for a second term, and Indiana has a new governor. Jasper native businessman, former United States Senator Mike Braun will be in the driver's seat at the State House. What does it mean for the future of the Indiana economy? We're digging into what a new governor's policies could mean for Hoosiers from Lake Michigan to the Ohio River. And for that perspective, pleased to be joined by UIndy Associate Professor of Political Science, Dr. Laura Wilson. And as always, Laura, great to see you.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Start at the national level. An election that was expected to be close wasn't that close, but the economy was clearly the big issue.
Oh, it absolutely was. And I think sometimes we talk about, like, is it social issues? Is it economic issues that drive voters? 2024 will be the election in the economy. And in 2022, for the congressional midterms, we thought we were going to see this red wave. It was much more of a red sprinkle. I think the wave was just late, that we definitely had that red wave on Tuesday evening. All
right, let's talk about closer to home here in Indiana. New governor Mike Braun will take the helm at the State House. Talk about your reaction. He's going to have maybe a little different outlook when it comes to economic development and economic policy here in the state.
Oh, absolutely. And you're talking about another Republican leader, but different experience and different focus. In his acceptance speech on Tuesday night, he talked about serving four corners of the country. So I think you're going to see more of a focus in terms of rural Indiana economic development. We also suspect that we'll see a real focus on current Indiana businesses, serving them and not just soliciting outside business, bringing it into the state, as we saw much more in the Holcomb administration.
To your point, we spoke with Kyle Anderson, the economist from Indiana University, Indianapolis here recently about the economic forecast for 2025. Here's what he had to say when it comes to regional economic development.
Between urban and rural. So I think that growth is spread out statewide because you've got areas like Fort Wayne, Evansville, the Northwest region. All of these areas are doing pretty well, along with Indianapolis. Some of our smaller communities are struggling. They're struggling to retain workers and retain talent and have population growth. So there's really a divide.
Yeah, interesting as you look at the different background with Mike Braun, an entrepreneur, built a company in Jasper. Very much a businessman, comes from that standpoint, may affect kind of his outlook around the state.
Oh, I think it absolutely will. And if having that experience as a business owner, he's going to be more empathetic, understanding to the experiences of other business owners. But we also know in the state of Indiana, we have a brain drain problem. And so thinking about how do you cultivate in these small communities, we talk about population leaving, how do you help those small businesses? I think that's going to be a priority we see in this Braun administration.
How do you think his relationship will be with the Indiana legislature versus how it's been with Governor Holcomb? Any change? He's a former state legislator, so there's maybe some connectivity there.
Yeah, I think that connectivity helps a lot, right? He has a relationship with the state legislature. He's coming from the U.S. Senate, but I think also what we'll see, you have a more conservative Republican in Mike Braun than what we had in Holcomb, and sometimes there was tension between Holcomb and the Indiana General Assembly. I expect that Braun gets along better with the state legislature. He's indicated that he thinks he's going to have that kind of relationship too. So when we talk about unified government, there were times that Holcomb vetoed, there were times the legislature overrode. I don't think we're going to see that in this administration.
Interesting that Mike Braun voted against the CHIPS Act, which has had big impact here in Indiana, as did Jim Banks, our new United States Senator, when he was in the House. He voted against it as well.
He did, and I think that's really important. That was a sticking point for some voters. Todd Young had supported it and was actually actually listed there in terms of sponsorship. But when we're looking in terms of Jim Banks, he's still going to be in Congress, now representing the entire state and not just the 3rd congressional district, but likely enjoying unified government. We know Donald Trump, as a Republican, has the White House. The Republicans took back the Senate, and it looks like, by all projections, the Republicans will maintain the House as well.
All right, some great perspective as always. Laura, you can take a breath now. The election is over. I know you've been very busy, so thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, the new governor of Indiana takes over after 2 terms with Eric Holcomb at the wheel. Holcomb became the Republican nominee for governor in 2016 after Donald Trump picked then Indiana Governor Mike Pence as his vice presidential running mate. Eric Holcomb won re-election in 2020, receiving the most votes for governor in Indiana history. Coming up next, a new strategy to push economic development deals forward in Indiana's capital city. What Indianapolis is doing to put more investment wins in the win column. Well, we are about to see a big change in the way economic development deals are done in Indianapolis. Develop Indy, which is part of the Indy Chamber, has been in charge of economic development since 2012. But that will change with a new vision and a familiar face leading the charge.
I've been around Indianapolis since I got out of college in 1984. I cannot remember, as I'm sure you can't, a more exciting time.
Former Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger has been tapped as CEO of the new standalone Economic Development Group. During Schellinger's tenure as Secretary of Commerce, Indiana landed tens of billions of dollars in deals, including Elanco's new corporate campus at the former General Motors stamping plant site along the White River. The new effort is aimed at streamlining efforts to land investment and jobs in Indy and Marion County by operating, as Mitch Daniels used to say, at the speed of business with a singular focus.
There's not people every day getting out of bed focused only on that. It's not getting done. So I think just isolating the focus on economic development for the city of Indianapolis is the intent, the mayor's intent.
The intent is to put more wins in the wins column, globally and closer to home. In 2023, Indy landed commitments for just over 11,000 jobs. In Nashville, it was more than double that number.
It's always, Columbus, Ohio. It's Nashville. It's Memphis on one hand. It's Austin, Texas. It's the Carolinas and Charlotte. We have got a different way of doing business that can be equal, if not more effective. But we also have office space, and we have room for company and major league corporate headquarters to be here. So that will obviously be one of our targets, is to increase the number of corporate headquarters we have in Indianapolis.
So a focus on more corporate headquarters, a big focus looking ahead. Indianapolis got a jump start on that mission this week, landing a deal with a big name company with deep Indiana ties.
So I went exploring, trying to find better lubricants. Started making our own stuff, and it was pretty good. But then I found something that was really, really good.
So good, it catapulted Indiana entrepreneur Forrest Lucas from truck driver to multimillionaire. The automotive lubricant company Lucas founded 35 years ago, saying goodbye to the West Coast and hello to Indy's North Side. Lucas Oil Products unveiling its new headquarters this week at Keystone at the Crossing. If Lucas Oil rings a bell, it might just be, of course, because the company owns the naming rights to Lucas Oil Stadium in downtown Indianapolis.
Here's what's making news around Indiana. Brought to you by the Indiana Association of Realtors. Indiana's 21,000 realtors. The neighbors you know, the experts you can count on.
And we start this week in Northeast Indiana, where plans are in the works to build a new state-of-the-art multi-purpose venue in Fort Wayne in the form of a new stadium, which will have 7,500 seats for soccer fans watching the Fort Wayne Football Club. That's beginning in 2026. That new venue will also be big enough for up to 10,000 people to attend concerts and other events. The owner and CEO of Ruoff Mortgage, Mark Music, is the driver behind the project, with plans to privately finance that deal. Well, getting around in far northwest Indiana took a positive turn this week. State officials opening a $35 million new highway bridge that makes it easier to get from to and from Indiana's shipping port in Burns Harbor. Port officials say the new bridge could double capacity to handle ocean shipments. In Michigan City, a steering committee continues to work on possible plans for the Indiana State prison site. The city's mayor tells Inside Indiana Business the site is a game changer that could change the face of not only the city, but the population. The area is less than a mile away from downtown.
It's over 100 acres with several buildings that are beautiful, have beautiful architecture. So I'm hoping as we go through this next 18 months, we have a consulting group that has come together. We've selected the steering committee that was just announced. And I think this is an opportunity for residents and state and regional partners to come together to really talk through what this could look like in the future.
The Indiana State prison as it exists now, moving to a new facility in Westville, currently under construction. The committee is looking at the development plans from both a demographic and financial standpoint. Well, an international game store is opening its first U.S. location in South Bend. Dicebox Cafe will offer a mix of classic and newer games. Visitors will pay per hour for the space, which will also feature food options. It is set to open sometime within the next year. Coming up next, Central Indiana setting the table for a palate cleanse with a global twist. Well, the best of the best competing for the top prize at the World Food Championship in Indy. Why it's important to Indiana's emerging culinary scene.
What if we could actually see germs and how they're transferred in the hospital room when a patient is placed on a hospital bed?
Indiana Company's role in making hospital stays safer. And a new place for Hoosiers to get their hearing tested with a Purdue connection. Boilermakers are battling hearing loss with a new center at the 16 Tech Innovation District in Indianapolis. That's where we find Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta.
Thanks, Gary. The new center is inside the food hall at 16 Tech, and that's intentional because outreach is a major piece of this. One goal for the new center is to make it easy for people in the local community to have their hearing tested, especially those who are underserved. Called the Accessible Precision Audiology Research Center, it will be home to a team of Purdue University researchers. Experts say untreated hearing loss is a health crisis. It's associated with dementia, falls, and social isolation. Using the latest cutting-edge technology, the Purdue team will also work to develop even better testing methods. Batesville-based startup Trinity Guardian just completed a Series B funding round, raising $6 million. The startup makes mattress barriers that it says protects patients from hospital-acquired infections. The Soteria bed barrier covers both the mattress and bed frame to prevent fluids from leaking in, reducing the risk of infections. The startup now also expanding to make mattress barriers for neonatal, incubators, and warmers in the NICU. Now, hospital mattresses typically have a shell that's wiped down with disinfectant in between patients because the shell can't be removed. But Trinity Guardian's barrier can be removed and put through the startup's special laundering process.
Concern over soft porous surfaces, which is what a hospital mattress is, has been much more significant since COVID. And that is what's driven a lot of the growth that the company has seen, and actually the expansion into this new product category for the NICU.
The startup manufactures its mattress barriers in Batesville, a city with a long legacy of making hospital beds. Cincinnati venture capital firm Queen City Angels led the funding round. The annual Indiana Life Sciences Summit earlier this week brought together movers and shakers in the industry. The event spotlighted the groundbreaking advancements in diabetes and obesity care management happening in Indiana. Of course, Eli Lilly and Company, a major player in the GLP-1 space, the new class of drugs revolutionizing the treatment of diabetes and obesity. And now back to the Purdue Audiology Center, where location really is key. It's home at 16 Tech, of course, just right down the street from the new Purdue University in Indianapolis. Gary, back to you.
Good stuff. Thanks very much, Kylie. Here's something that foodies from around the globe are sinking their teeth into right here in Central Indiana, the 12th annual World Food Championships at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. It is a 5-day food sports competition and the largest on the planet, where chefs, home cooks, and young culinary talent serve up their specialties. From burgers and barbecue to sandwiches and bacon, the World Food Championships also a perfect recipe for promoting Indiana's already growing culinary scene.
I think it's emerging and a rising star because it's in such an enviable position. I mean, that's one of the things that we were so excited about, is that when you think about bringing it to Indianapolis in the state of Indiana, you're right here in the bed of where we're feeding the world.
The World Food Championships wrap up in the week ahead, November 12th, with the winner taking home, get this, a grand prize of $150,000. Well, next we look at how Taylornomics played out in central Indiana.
Are you ready for it?
Gauging the economic impact Taylor Swift's 3-night run in Indianapolis had on the city.
Time now for our Eye on Education, brought to you by PNC Bank.
Well, plans for revitalizing the Village next to Ball State University's campus, they're moving forward. This week, the school will break ground on its new Performing Arts Center and hotel. Ball State expects the center will host some 160 performances each year. The hotel will have nearly 100 rooms and include an upscale restaurant as well as a rooftop bar. Construction expected to be complete in the summer of 2026. And Purdue Pete may have become the man when it comes to impactful events surrounding the Eras Tour. Purdue University says 10,000 people visited the In Our STEM Era makerspace inside Circle Center Mall. The event featured several activities that highlighted different areas of STEM. Purdue hopes that some of the visitors who are so high school visited the pop-up will become future Boilermakers.
Indianapolis, as you know, has been a huge focus for us this year in opening our first urban campus. It took the full team to execute, but at the end of the day, we met our audience where they're at and told them the Purdue story, and hopefully spark some curiosity in STEM and expose some areas of STEM that they'd never, thought about.
Well, students at IU Indianapolis have spent the semester studying what it takes to bring major events to the city, from logistics to branding. They even got to be part of the Taylor Swift Street team to help out out-of-town guests with directions and information. By all accounts, Taylor Swift was perhaps even better than advertised. The pop icon performed to 3 consecutive sold-out crowds of more than 69,000, setting a record for the largest audience ever at Lucas Oil Stadium. Not an easy feat, especially when you consider the magnitude of the events held inside the house that Peyton built over the last 2 decades.
This is Lucas Oil Stadium.
Since opening its doors in 2008, Lucas Oil Stadium has seen its fair share of historic events.
The title game.
From 3 NCAA men's Final Fours.
Midcourt launches the shot. Oh, it almost went in!
And Super Bowl 46, when another Manning not named Peyton beat the Patriots.
How's it feel to win this Super Bowl in the building that your brother built?
Indianapolis has been a great host of the Super Bowl.
The College Football Playoff National Championship.
And the drought is over.
And most recently, the USA Swim Trials.
With the Hoosier crowd trying to push into the win.
But it's fair to say this stadium and perhaps this city,
I'm so excited that it can make me cry,
has never seen anything quite like 3 nights of Taylor Swift.
I love you!
Indianapolis, Indiana!
I've been doing this for 39 years, and I'm a big sports fan, and Super Bowl was obviously incredible, and we've had a lot of wonderful events, but the positive energy and the crowd was just off the charts.
Our early results show that the city really showed up in a big, meaningful way, from a tourism perspective, from a branding perspective, from welcoming more than 200,000 visitors from across the country, but also the world. It feels good to have so much praise poured on our city by the artists.
And you're welcome to be a
and by fans and by visitors.
We saw this incredible image being put up on the JW Marriott in downtown Indy. People are seeing this from their plane.
It was an opportunity for a whole different segment of people that may have never been here. You know, it was over 80% of the people came from out of town. We opened their eyes to Indianapolis like they've never seen it before. We knocked their socks off.
And from breaking attendance records to local businesses raking in record dollars.
For the weekend, we made more money than we would have made for the Super Bowl, really for virtually the whole week. Instead of 2 times what the normal rates would be, we were probably 3 times plus.
2024 already a blockbuster year for Indy tourism.
In the history of Indianapolis, we will not have seen more people descend on our city. And so to have Indy be one of just 3 cities in the nation to host a brand like Taylor Swift and all that comes with it, it is incredibly beneficial as we look to draw business into Indianapolis.
Just think about all those young kids all the way up to young adults. They're going to remember this forever, and they're going to remember Taylor Swift being up on the JW and all the pictures that they took. I think we'll feel the positive vibes from this for a long, long time.
You have just completely confirmed that we chose the right 69,000 people to spend our last American show. Thank you.
Big impact indeed. Thanks, Mary Rachel. That's all the time we have for this edition of Inside Indiana Business. We leave you this week with some little ones here in Indianapolis. Old Bethel Preschool on the east side getting lessons in voting by voting with peanut butter and jelly. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gerry Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Vote peanut butter. Vote jelly. We're here on Election Day. Peanut butter with jelly. Vote!
Thank you for listening to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can get the latest business news from every corner of the state at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gerry Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.